Hello children, today we are going to read pages 136 and 137 of our English reader Little Lord Fauntleroy. But before we begin, I would like to give you a recap of the previous lesson. Now, the woman who claimed to be Lady Fauntleroy actually turned out to be Ben's wife Minna, and her child was not Bevis's son, but Ben was his father. She was not a very clever woman. She kept changing her statement, and when she saw Ben and Dick with Mr. Havisham, she flew into a rage. Finally, Tom, her son, left her and went with his father, Ben. Now let's turn to page 136. With that, he walked out of the room, holding the child's hand. He did not look back at the woman once. She was raving in a fury. The Earl was calmly watching. She was raving in a fury, meaning she was talking nonsense in anger. "Come, come, my young woman," said Mr. Havisham. "This won't do at all. If you don't want to be locked up, you really must behave yourself. Locked up meaning if you don't want to be put behind bars, if you don't want to be put in prison, then you must behave yourself." At that, she gave him a nasty look. Then she dashed into the next room, slamming the door. "We shall have no more trouble with her," said Mr. Havisham, and he was right. That very night, she left the Dorincourt Arms and took the train to London. The Earl never saw her again. The Earl left the Dorincourt Arms and went at once to Court Lodge. He walked in without being announced. "Where," he said, "is Lord Fauntleroy?" Without being announced here means that he did not give the servants enough time to let Mrs. Errol know that the Earl had come to see her. Mrs. Errol came forward, her cheeks flushed. "Is he Lord Fauntleroy?" she asked. "Is he indeed?" The Earl put out a hand and grasped hers. "Yes," he said, "he is." Cedric came out then, and the Earl put a hand on his shoulder. You see here, Mrs. Errol is also very excited. Her cheeks are flushed with excitement because she too is anxious to know if Cedric is still Lord Fauntleroy. And the Earl has just told her that yes, he is. "Cedric," the Earl said, "ask your mother when she will come to live with us at the castle." So finally, the Earl's heart has softened towards Mrs. Errol. Cedric flung his arms around his mother's neck. "To live with us," he cried. "To live with us always?" The Earl looked at Mrs. Errol, and Mrs. Errol looked at the Earl. He thought it was about time that he made friends with his true heir's mother. Yes, Cedric was the true heir because he will finally own everything the Earl has. And of course, Mrs. Errol was Cedric's mother. So he wanted to make friends with Cedric's mother now. "Are you quite sure you want me?" said Mrs. Errol with her soft, pretty smile. "Quite sure," the Earl said bluntly. "We have always wanted you. We just didn't know." So this is the end of chapter 14. Having read the pages 136 and 137, I would like you to answer a question for me. You don't have to write it down. You can just discuss it with your parents or your siblings. The question is, what does "to be locked up" mean? So next week we will continue reading from here. We will read chapter 15. Till then, goodbye.